When it comes to leading your church, you have a lot of things coming up that you want to engage your people with. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 7 things to do to get less signups at your church.
Well, hey, welcome back to Practical Church Planting. My name is Brian, and with me is Dylan. And today we're going to talk about 7 ways to get less signups at your church.
And this episode is brought to you by ambassadorsministries.com. Wouldn't it be nice to have a larger paid staff, to have more leaders that could give dedicated time to the mission God has given to you in your church plant? Of course, we know the answer to that is yes, but often a church plant's finances just won't allow for it, and so Ambassadors Ministries wants to help. They'll enable you to hire leaders you have identified by coaching them to fundraising a full, part-time, or supplemental salary at no cost to your church. And they also support them in all the administrative tasks of raising funds so that you can remain focused on the hard work of church planting. So, again, check them out at ambassadorsministries.com. That's ambassadors, plural. ambassadorsministries.com, or the link in the show notes. And again, we just want to say this, a lot of college ministries do the support raising process, and I've just noticed a lot of church planters don't think that this is an option for them. And so if you've got leaders at your church that you can't yet pay, get connected with Ambassadors Ministries. We've had many of our church staff raise support over the years, and it's been a great benefit to us. So today, we're talking about 7 ways to get less. You heard that right?
Yeah.
Not more.
When you told me about it, I was like, okay.
But less. So
Sure.
we've done episodes on how to get more signups,
Yep.
things to do. This episode are things to do or things that you might be doing that are hindering people from signing up for the things that you are offering at your church or taking next steps at your church. So if any of these can relate, we'll give you how to fix it as well. So here we go. Number 1, special email addresses. Now, what I mean by special email addresses is, let's say you have somebody who wants to sign up, for your membership class or for baptism or for serving or, whatever. And instead of saying, hey, email this person at whatever at churchname.com, it's email missions at churchurl.com, or email baptism at whatever, or email serving at. And here's the thing. It sounds so impersonal to email a non-real person's email that a lot of people probably are just not going to do it. And also, just to be honest, maybe if I wouldn't recommend this at any size, because you have to have probably you probably have someone as the point person for checking that email anyway, so you might as well share their email.
Yeah.
But especially if you're a smaller church, it's not like you got tons and tons of people emailing you. So why set up all these specialized email addresses? Because then the problem is, if it's something that's hardly ever emailed, then you probably hardly ever check it, and then someone does email you, and then you miss it. So you want to have a point person on these things anyway. And so whether it's your email address or another staff member or whatever, don't do email at like a baptism or membership or whatever at. You want to have a specific person's email address, because people are much less likely to email a non-person's email address than a real person's email address.
And it seems at first glance, it's almost like you appear to be organized because you have an email for each thing. That's cool in theory, but it just doesn't work out, because are you going to check every single one of those at least once every 2 days? Probably not. You'll forget about it. I know all of the children's stuff goes to one of our staff members. Everything else, I think, comes to me, other than meeting with the pastor or leadership questions. And it makes sense. Even some of the cards we have out in the lobby just say my name is community groups, serving, hospitality. It's all my email. And so if it's not a wrong question, but if it needs to be directed, then I can connect them with another real person.
Yeah, I think even if they email somebody and it's better for somebody else, they can just forward the email along.
Yep.
But you want to do a real email address, especially, I would do a bigger church too, but even if you're a smaller church, it's kind of unnecessary and it's an extra step. Even for us, on our church website, is another thing, I would put your email addresses on your website. Each staff person, put it on your website so people can reach out to you. But so for us, on our website, if you go to the staff page, all of our emails are there. On the bottom of our homepage, we have an info at newcityrd.com. We just have it. And we don't, every once in a while we'll get an email because somebody will, find it and click it there. But we don't use that for anything. We'll check it, but we don't push anyone. If you need information in New City, it's not info at newcityrdu, it's something else. And so whenever you're talking about something, always push it to a person, not a special email address. It sounds depersonal. You probably are. I know we are. I'm way less motivated to, even customer service. If you have a problem with something, it's email customer service at whatever, and you're well, no one's ever going to check this.
Nope.
And so special email addresses, highly not recommend them, and that might be a discouragement for people signing up for certain things if you have them. So
Well, and not only that, just real quick, kind of somewhat related to that, you do have some we talked about in a previous episode about like subscriptions and stuff. Like a lot of times it's okay to have that generic email when staff changes. You don't have to keep changing that. So that's one thing. But as far as using it for communication, a lot of times these special emails will often also land into spam and junk folders.
Yes, that's the point. So yeah, the services doesn't matter. We use info for like signing up or logging in for things, but for people to actually get information, it's not info. It is an actual person's name. Now, real quick sidebar, as we're talking about signing up for things, Brian Brammer here is owner, operator, runner? Co-owner of Tangerine Games.
We're plugging this again.
I want to mention this. We haven't mentioned this yet. They've got a new game coming out called Nestlings. Where do they go? If people are like board game people, where do they go if they want more information about this?
So this is funny. The Kickstarter pre-launch page is live.
Okay.
So that means you can sign up to get notified when the campaign goes live.
Is it like tangerine.games is your
Tangerine
website?
Games is the website. When you go there, the little link to the Kickstarter.
That's probably the easiest way to find Kickstarter.
That is the easiest way because a little banner comes up, but you have to click something. So yeah, if you like board games, this is kind of like a medium weight family game. We actually tested it here at our board game night. So that's another way. Create events just so you can push your stuff. It's exciting. It's a lot of work, but
I have no idea what medium weight board game means.
Yeah,
but if you're a board game, you probably do. So anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. I wanted to mention that. Tangerine.games, if you're a board game guy. Check them out. All right, number 2. When it comes to getting less signups, signing up on your website is confusing. So let's say, it's an appropriate place that you send people to sign up for stuff, but it's not clear where to go or how to find it, you'll get less signups. So let's say, for example, you're having a baptism service coming up soon, which we are. Tell people to go to your website, and it's like, but where? So if they go to your website, if they have to click around to find it, it's going to be really confusing. Now, for us, all of our upcoming events that are like less than a month away are actually on our homepage, so you can scroll down and find it. So also with that, we also make direct URLs. So any event that we have or sign up, it's newcityrdu.com/ whatever that is. Ideally, it's one word. So like baptism, it's newcityrdu.com/baptism or newcityrdu.com/ serve or whatever. If there's something coming up, it's like a one-word thing, and so that it's like super easy to find. Now, they might not, I don't think they're always going to be like, let me remember the exact URL, but they're certainly not going to remember it if it's like super long. So for us, everything's always like a one-word direct URL. So like when we mention it from stage, we say that. But it's also on the homepage of our website, upcoming events. You can scroll down and they're easy to find. And so if you're telling people to sign up for something on your website, but it's like they have to click 2 links to get there or they're not sure where it is, it can be really, really confusing. And so again, if you're like a super large church, putting all your events on your website wouldn't be helpful. But again, you should probably not listen to this podcast if you're a super large church. So for most churches, as long as you're not doing like a million things, which you shouldn't be anyway, you want to make things super easy to find. And so if you're pointing people to your website, but you're not telling them how exactly to navigate the website, if it's not pretty intuitive, you're going to get less signups.
Yep. The less they have to do, the better.
Yep. So make it simple. Again, we use the churchco.com is what we recommend for church website builders. And so they make it, super simple. And so all of our upcoming events are on our website and are on the homepage. You can just scroll down to it. But we also make the URLs simple to remember if that helps them as well. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else like trunk or treat. If we need people to sign up for that, it'll be like newcdr.com/trunk, I think. I don't know. I forget what it is. But anyway, because I'm trying to make it shorter. Whatever.
Church /trunk.
Yeah. But it's just, what's more so for people to find stuff simply. So simple, easy URLs. If you're putting them to your website, it's got to be easy to navigate, or don't be surprised if people aren't signing up. Now, number 3 kind of has to do with that. Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Regardless of what I just said. Number 3 is not linking direct URLs on your website. And this is specifically if you're doing something via social media or via like your church email newsletter. Like, again, let's say you have a baptism service coming up and you're like, if you're interested in getting baptized or have questions about baptisms, if I just said, go to newcityrdu.com, and maybe I linked that, linked it like click here or whatever, and it went just to the homepage, they still have to look around. Yeah. And so if you're sending somebody a link digitally, you should make sure you hyperlink it or send a direct link to that page where they can do the action, and not just to your website to find it, because then it's extra steps and it's definitely unnecessary. It's one thing to say from stage, go to this website and whatever. It's another thing to like send them a link and not send them like the direct link to do the thing. So in your emails or social media or however you do it digitally, always send the direct link to the thing that you're doing so that it's easy to sign up.
Yeah, hyperlinks I think work wonderfully because also it doesn't jam up your text. Like if you're reading a really what they call a wall of text.
Yep.
And you don't put appropriate paragraphs, people are going to read the first sentence and check out. Same with if you actually have, an email, even if it does have the backslash, it kind of makes it look uninviting. So if you can just hyperlink it to a word like baptism that's actually in your text, and it takes them directly to that page. It's just when people see things that are more inviting, they're more likely to engage with it. If that makes any sense.
So you want to hyperlink the direct link, but also, so typically like in our newsletters, I mean, it's a pretty basic thing, but instead of saying, if you're interested in baptism, click the link below, like I typically bold it, and so it's very obvious, and I'll say, click here.
Yep.
Or, maybe bold a couple of words there, and so that people know exactly where to click, because that's how people do emails and stuff these days. So I would, like hyperlink specific text, not just randomly throwing the URL in there, and then make sure you are hyperlinking the specific place to sign up. Now, and as a side note, one of the things for us, again, the Church Code makes this really simple. I'll just say this too, if you're looking for a church website builder, if you put in practical at checkout for the Church Code, you can get their premium plan, which is $50 a month for $29 for 2 years a month. So you get 40% off. So definitely do that.
Yeah.
So they make it simple, really easy. Like all of our events are their own page. So we don't have like one page with like multiple signups because that would be really, really confusing. So you definitely want to, separate out each of your individual events as well, which the Church Code makes that easy. But again, direct URLs. Again, if you have multiple things to sign up on one page, it can be confusing to send a direct URL because then they have to like scroll and click the right one, which is confusing. But anyway, make a URL. If you're sending it digitally, don't just send them to your website. Send them to the exact landing page that they need to go to do the thing that they need to do. Number 4, not having someone at your Connect table on Sundays or whatever you call your place where people can come and get more information, or not even having one in general. That could be difficult as well. So you want to have a place where people can go, and but it's nothing more awkward than someone not being there because the people are probably not going to wait around or they're going to feel weird. And so we're really intentional about this. One way we do it at New City is we actually have our next step person go to the Connect table after service. Now, we always, between them and we have our Sunday coordinator, they're also hanging out there as well because people can come before or after the service. But we always have somebody there. Now, for us, our Next Steps person also closes the service. And so as soon as the service is done, like they have to walk out to the lobby and go there and make sure they're there before everyone else is. But if nobody's there, you're missing a big opportunity, especially if you're telling people to go to a certain place and they work up the courage because they're new to go there and nobody's there, like, that's a huge blown opportunity. So you got to really make sure somebody is always there, the place that you're trying to direct people to go to get more information or take next steps.
Yeah, I'm not one of those to where, I'm more of an introvert, but when I've gone to other churches in the past, if I don't see someone there, I'm not just going to stand nearby.
Yeah.
I will leave. Yeah. I will leave because it could be uncomfortable. And don't assume that everyone is just as outgoing as you are. If you are outgoing,
right,
that they'll just sit around. You'll find someone to talk to while you wait for someone at your Connect table to show up. This is one of those where if we're inviting them to come to the church, here at New City, we say try 3 at New City. We want them to try 3 times. Kind of hard to gauge and experience just on one Sunday. But if we're saying that and we're saying, hey, come talk to me here, and you're not there, they are not going to try 2.
Right.
So just that point of contact is huge, and it really doesn't. It just takes intentionality. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, and then our coordinator for the week is also floating around. There's been times where, and this is another good thing, if you have someone doing next steps or that type of thing, whatever you do call it, and they're at your Connect table, having the coordinator around is also helpful because if someone gets pulled into a conversation and there's someone else coming for more information, you don't want them waiting, and then you don't want your next steps person to rush through the conversation therein. So kind of like a backup plan as well.
And it's also too, so oftentimes if I'm not preaching, I'll do the next steps. But I don't like to go to the next step table after service. I like to hang out auditorium to talk to people because sometimes you'll be out there and no one will come for a while, and I'm just like missing other conversations. So it's helpful to have like the Connect table person. I'll tell them, hey, just make sure you're there because I'm not going to come right out. We want to make sure somebody's there, and this is also, especially if you're smaller, you might be like, well, I can just tell people to come talk to me, but if like they got to find you, and what if you're having a conversation with someone else? Like they're not going to wait around. Probably they're going to feel awkward. So just having it doesn't have to. It's just a nice, simple place where people can go, drop off their Connect card, answer any questions. But you want to make it really obvious, and someone always needs to be there, or else you're missing the opportunity.
Yep.
So, not having someone at your Connect table on Sundays or however people take their next steps is a big way to not get signups. Number 5. sharing things too far in advance. Now, there's different. I mean, I don't know the correct rule of thumb here. A new city, we're pretty much like 3 weeks is like.
If so, like sometimes I think we try not to.
So oftentimes, next steps, it's about 2, sometimes 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
On our website, I'll be about a month. Again, the number one group of people who are going to your website are new people. So our church people aren't like checking our website constantly to see what coming events are. But like the website and our newsletter, I'll often do about a month ahead of time. And then next step on Sunday, and really like trying to push it, I'll do 2 to 3 weeks. And then if it's a big thing, we'll do like a text, like with a text update, we do 1 or 2 of those a month. That's typically week of, so it's not confusing to people. But if you got stuff going on 6 weeks from now, even if you don't have like tons of events, when you start saying something week after week after week, people just stop listening. Most people aren't planning their calendar around a church event in 6 weeks anyway. And so you can kind of lose the momentum of saying something too long. Now, again, it's different if you want to mention like Christmas or Easter, like that, that's fine. But like, if you have something coming up, you want people to, especially if you want them to sign up or put on their calendar, if it's too far in advance, they're not listening, and you're saying it too much, it gets repetitive, so people stop listening. We've also found, this is a little bit of a side note, when we do like donation drives for like schools or something like that, we'll do often like 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, but it's like we'll announce it. So let's say you'll announce it this Sunday, and like the next 2 weeks we are taking stuff. Or you could say the next 3 weeks, but the trick is like a lot of people don't come every single week. Yeah. So, but also like if it's longer than 3 weeks, people are waiting till the last week to bring their stuff anyway. And when it's a shorter time frame, you can talk about it more and it doesn't seem pushy. And so like when we don't, anytime we do a donation drive, it's 3 weeks maybe, but I think the last couple has been just 2 weeks. And yeah, maybe some people would have missed out on that would have participated. But the thing is, the people that I think you'll get more anyway because people know there's a deadline. Yeah. And again, this is a side note too. We always put a number on it. So like, if we're trying to collect some supplies for something like a school drive or whatever, we don't generally pick whatever you want. We do like 1 or 2 things, and we put a number of here's how much we want to collect, and then we always hit it. We started doing this recently. We did like a canned food drive, and we said, I don't know, 5,000 cans. 5,000, yeah. Which is, for our size, I mean, that's kind of dumb, in like 2 or 3 weeks. But we had multiple people say like, if you don't hit it, let me know. Yeah. And so people brought cans. It was way too ridiculous of a goal, but we hit it. We did like snack cracker drive for a local school here. So like kids during snack time, the elementary school kids, some kids don't have a snack. And you could do a lot of snack foods, but we did just the snack crackers because we wanted to pick one thing, like the packs of 6 or 8, and then we individually said, how many was our goal?
It was 2,500.
2,500. So like, there's most of the boxes that come in like packs of 8 or 10 or whatever, so that would count as like 10. We put a specific number on it. We exceeded the goal, but then we also had a couple people said, hey, if you don't get it, let me know, and I'll. So that has nothing to do with. That
was like a side note to a side note.
But if you're trying to do collection stuff, make it short. But that doesn't have to do with things too far in advance. People wait till the last minute to do stuff anyway, till it's critical. So if you talk about way too long, people aren't listening. It's not helpful.
Well, and I remember one church. It was a while ago where they were doing the same type of thing, which was great, canned food drive, and it was about 4 weeks, and they may have only mentioned it from the stage once, and then was assuming that people will remember because they handed out these little paper bags at the end of every service, and I'm like, well, you didn't mention this from the stage Sunday morning. What is this like?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean. Of course, if some people have good memories, but some aren't thinking about it. They're thinking about going to lunch or they're talking to people. And so having the 2 week thing, max of 3, we also encourage you're still mentioning it every week. It's not just, 2 or 3 weeks out and then we never mention it again. Yes. But it's not this, if you do it like for a whole month, then you're going to feel like, I don't want to mention it every week. That's 4 weeks. So then you just don't mention it all.
And some people miss it because they come the week you don't mention it.
And they just kind of get lost in the fold. And I'd say with the snack crackers, most of them brought snack crackers, but then they started bringing like goldfish. It's like, that's fine too. But giving people, some are like, what should I bring? And if they don't know or they're scared, they won't do it. So if you give them that direction and you give them that goal, people like goals. It's something to shoot for. And the longer, the whole announcement to when it is happens, they're going to, I don't have a good memory, but for the most part, like you're competing with all of the things in their lives. And, I do like how we do it here, where it's just like super concentrated for a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's the thing. So when we announce something, we announce it every week, which you need to do once you start announcing it. And then the nice thing about having a goal, which is how they have to do with this episode, is that it's a lot easier to celebrate. Like it's one thing to say, "Hey, thanks so much for donating." Something to say like, "Hey, we hit this goal. They were awesome. They were excited. I shared an email from one of the teachers that emailed me how excited they were. So like really celebrating it well. So people are encouraged. But all I say, sharing things too far in advance is not helpful. Once you start sharing it, I would start sharing it every week, whether that's in your newsletter. I mean, we don't share everything from stage, but it's like once it's in the newsletter, it's in there every week. Or like on our bathroom graphic in our bathrooms, we do upcoming events, and it's nothing more than a month, and we leave it up there, until it's gone. So sharing things too far in advance is actually a detriment. I've just found short, actionable windows, you're going to get a lot more traction than just dragging on, talking about it, because it doesn't feel urgent. So that was number 5. Number 6. Your URL or your social media handles are different. So your church website and your social media are different. Now, this can drive a decrease in signups and engagement because people just don't know what's going on. Now, we talk about often how like your social media is not a billboard of announcements. In fact, if you go to practicalplanting.com and we can send you a free church planter's guide to social media. We'll talk exactly through some of the things you can post and how to be more consistent. So get that at practicalplanting.com if you don't have it. But if you want people to engage with your church and remember things, especially things that are important, they got to be able to find you. And if your URL, your church website, is different than your Facebook page or your Instagram, Twitter, whatever handles you use, TikTok, whatever you're using, YouTube, it's a lot harder to find you. So like for us, newcityrdu.com is our website, newcityrdu on everything. Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and youtube.com/newcityrdu, or you can just type in newcityrdu. You want to make it super simple because people aren't going to remember anyway, and I've heard stories of people following wrong churches because it had similar names, and it just makes it way more easy to connect. And so I'm big on this, man. If you go back to our very first episode of this podcast, and I always like to say this, I made a joke that like it's the most important thing you can do. The name of your church is the most important decision or something like that, and it was a joke, and I don't feel like it came across like that in the episode, so I will always be trying to say that. But I like the name of your church. This should matter. I thought it was interesting. This is a side note. We're part of Acts 29, so last week there was an assessment conference I was part of, and they did a little church conference like a day or before ahead of time. And Acts 29 is more. It's traditionally. I mean, there's theological clarity, a lot of stuff like. For lack of a better word, like seeker sensitive is not the top of Acts 29's list. Yeah. But one of the speakers even talked about church names and how important it is, and he even recommended, like for future church planners, not to use like a Greek or a Hebrew name because like nobody knows what that means. And I was like, yes, I've been saying the same thing.
Or the name of the street.
Yeah, because you might move your building.
You probably will if you're a church plant.
But yeah. But anyway, so like. The church name matters, and you want to reach people for Jesus. The name of your church isn't the most important thing. It's like the mission, not the method can change. And so, like having a name where you can find something that they're all similar is important. Now, whether you have to include like your county or like a RDU is a Raleigh thing, and so that's how we can get New City RDU. Whatever it is, they need to be consistent across all things. So when we're directing people to things, you're always being consistent. If you're like highlighting YouTube for whatever reason or Facebook, and also if you have other people doing announcements or whatever, they ain't going to remember too, and they're going to be confused. And so you want to have handles and URL all needs to be the same. And if they're not, you need to figure out a way to change them so that they are all the same.
Yep. I have nothing more to add.
So
that was perfect.
New City RDU is ours. So, I mean, not ours is the best, but like you can follow us anywhere. Check out our website if you want ideas, how we do things. They're not great, but we're consistent, and that's what's important. And so if they're different, it's just confusing. People don't know where to find you. So make sure they're all the same. And then number 8, last but not least, you don't follow up to inquiries, or you follow up too slowly. So I had experience at a previous church where my wife and I, years ago, we signed up to serve and just like on a Connect card or whatever, and didn't hear anything, which was disappointing, but whatever. And then a few weeks later, they had like a serve push Sunday. Like literally, they had like a Connect card on everybody's seat, or like a serve thing if you're not serving. So of course we signed up to serve and heard nothing. I was like, you literally, because that can happen. Like things can fall through the cracks, although you want to do your best. Like that's not an excuse though. But I was like, you literally, it's a larger church, but I'm like, you literally like did a push, and we filled it out for the second time, and nobody said anything. Like, what in the world? And so one of the things like we're really big on too is like we talk about our need for people to serve. We have needs, just like you probably do as well. If someone signs up to serve, and you follow up like 2 weeks later, well, it's like, is that big of a deal for you? Even if you follow up quickly, you need to get them on the rotation soon, because then it also demonstrates like, oh, you actually have a need. Like if I sign up to serve, you just serve push, and then I'm not on the schedule for a month. It's like, how much of a need did you actually have? Now, the larger your church is, the more complex I can get. But again, if you listen to this, you don't need a big runway. Like for us, people serve once a month. People can serve more than once a month if they want to, but it's once a month. So what we do is we get them on early, and then we get them on a week. Now their first shadow training week might not be the week that they end up
Right,
serving on,
right.
because we typically do like the same Sunday every month. But it's like we get them in early and then we get them on the schedule. So if you don't follow up at all, that's a problem. And if you follow up too slowly, it does not communicate that this was of value to you, even if you said it was from Stage or somewhere else.
So Sunday afternoon, if someone fills out a Connect card Sunday morning,
Yeah.
a lot of times they'll be interested in partnership, or it'll be like community groups or serving. And so right after the church service, we input their information for the newsletter and as well as the texting, so that they're getting something the very day they showed up. And then on Monday, today, I follow up with, here are some ways you can serve. Let me know how you'd like to serve. Here are some of our greatest needs. And so I've been getting some pretty good response from that, because they visited your church, it's on their mind, or even if you have, I think a couple times we've had some people interested in serving, they filled out a form online.
Yep.
Because maybe they were out of town that season.
Or, I mean, they can fill out a Connect card online, too.
Yes, that's what that means. And maybe they were out of town that Sunday and something just sparked, like,
or they watched the live
I want to
stream.
serve. Yeah, they watched the live stream. And so always anticipate that they're going to ask, and get them in the rotation early. Now, I have one that they've reached out beginning of the month, and she's not serving until the end of the month because of her schedule. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
You know, the thing is like, hey, when can you serve? Can you do it this Sunday? And if they're like, oh no, 2 Sundays, at least they're like, no, the need is there, like they said, because they asked about this Sunday. So just kind of following what you say. Mean what you say, and then be intentional.
And do it quickly.
Yeah.
So again, for us, if someone fills out a Connect card on Sunday afternoon, we'll put them in our texting system, which they'll get a series of texts for a couple of weeks, and they get a text that day.
Mm-hmm.
We put them in our newsletter, which is like a once-a-week thing. But we also put them in our email follow-up, and they'll get an email Monday morning. So they'll get a couple of emails and texts over the next couple of weeks every time they fill out a Connect card. And if they actually check something on the Connect card, then we also personally email them. Mm-hmm. There ain't nothing wrong with too much communication and too much information. So they sign up for serving, like they're still going to get our series of emails over the next 3 weeks that eventually one of them will tell them how they can do it. But also Brian's going to email them like the next day or two and say, hey, got your serving thing, whatever. If they sign up for kids, like they're going to get the generic follow-up no matter what. Mm-hmm. But if somebody also clicks something like or checks something specific, then they also get a specific follow-up about that thing. If they do discover or partnership stuff, that'll be me, or baptism, that'll be me. Hospitality, him. I don't
Community
know.
groups.
Community groups. So like they get the normal stuff. They also hear from us like within a day or two about that specific thing, and I think that just helps people like, oh, they're important about it. They thought it's important, and people just don't follow up well. Like businesses and a lot of churches don't do this well, and so hearing from someone quickly, it's like, oh, this is actually important to them. Like I can actually trust that. There's nothing worse than giving information and hearing nothing. They gave you their information, so I would say, don't feel bad if you have a follow-up system that's a couple of texts or emails over the span of 3 weeks. Like they gave you your information, so they expect to hear something from you. So don't let it just be like, I might email them once on a Thursday if I remember. That's not a good strategy.
Well, and you didn't solicit that information. Like you said, they willingly gave it to you, so they want to be contacted. They don't have a problem with you having their contact
They didn't sign up to win a prize or something. They just like,
want more information.
Yeah.
And even so, if someone were to check, like I'm interested in community groups and serving, so I handle both of those. I have a template, so I just to save time, so I don't have to write everything again.
Right.
But still doesn't mean you don't personalize it. So when I would send it out, if they wrote a note that said, I'm interested in being a greeter, I will tell them, hey, I see that you're interested in being a greeter. That's not part of my template. I added that. But then in the second email I send about community groups, I'll say, hey, it's me again. Right. So that it just doesn't seem like I'm clicking that. There's actually someone behind doing that. And believe it or not, that it kind of goes back to the personal email thing. That will a lot of times make it or break it for people. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, wow, not only did they just send me 2 emails, but they kind of handcrafted it. I really didn't, but they knew I was cognizant of them wanting to serve in other areas, and that's important.
And imagine how, going back to our very first point, how depersonalized it would feel if serve@newcityrdu.com emailed me and said, hey, thanks for signing up serve. That's like, who is that? Like nobody wants that. They want a person. Yep. So that's a good point. Save some of these templates and then email them. So like I do, once a week. I check if there's anyone who gave for the first time, and I have a standard email template, and I just send it to them. Yep. And it's also, again, if you have a conversation with somebody or someone has a conversation with them, you can also throw that in the email as well to give you some context. That can be helpful. But it will save you some time if you kind of write some of these templates and then just have them on hand when you get those signups, so you're not every time trying to figure out what to say. So, Yeah, so those are 7 ways to get less signups at your church. You want to avoid some of those things and to make it easier for people to take their next step. Speaking of taking next step, ambassadorsministries.com. If you've got church leaders that you want to develop and join your staff team and you aren't at a place where your church can afford to pay them as staff, but they might want to take a next step. So I would check them out, ambassadorsministries.com, practicalplanting.com if you want that church planter's guide to social media. And of course, if you're on Facebook, the Practical Church Planting Facebook group, people are always posting questions in there and you can get your questions answered. Thanks for being with us. We'll be with you next week on Practical Church Planting.
Later.